Hi, welcome back. Today I am so excited to be revealing to you the painting process that has gone behind this beautiful sunflower print. If you are anything like me, some days can be super challenging and you just need that powerful reminder to keep reaching for the light. Sunflowers do that naturally, and I do believe that we all need that same strength. For me, this sunflower represents the courage it took for me to quit that full-time job and invest more time into my art business. And I truly believe that it can inspire you to keep moving forward, even in the most challenging of times. I'm so excited to share with you that this is actually going to be my first ever limited edition print. I just wanted to make it that extra special and bring light into people's homes and remind you every day to be reaching for your goals. So let's get started.
Crafts. It's closed crafts. It's closed crafts.
Firstly, I'm starting on my easel set at quite an upright angle to encourage the colours to move together. Here's the reference photo that I'm using. I downloaded it free from Unsplash, and a big shout out to the photographer Aaron Burden. As you know, I paint very loosely, so I don't rely heavily on the reference, but it's always good to have it there as a guide. I'm using burnt umber to start with and applying it with the wet on dry technique. This allows me to keep control over the shape and texture. Once I was happy with the shape, I added water to the middle of the sunflower so that the colours could float more easily. And if you're wondering what paper I'm using, it's the Langton Prestige 100% cotton. It's a block, so I don't need to use any tape, which makes the process a lot easier for me. But that is why you are seeing the glue on the right hand side. Don't worry about that though, because you can just pick it off. I then go in with a tube, which is Dala Rune. Please forgive me if I said that wrong, but it's a cadmium red hue, which is actually really orange. Then at the top, I go in with the Van Gogh Scheming Violet tube. It's a beautiful violet colour. It's really deep, really rich, really dark. I love it so much, I add it to every painting. I'm just letting the paints mix directly on the paper now, allowing the colours to blend naturally. To add some variation, I'm doing a bit of lifting with a clean brush. As you've noticed, I've left a couple of white areas. This is intentional. I wanted to preserve light in those spots, and I thought it would add a cool effect to the final piece. I'm going in with my yellow ochre pan, and I think this colour pairs really well with the burnt umber, adding warmth and depth to the piece. Around the white areas, I'm adding darker colours to make those highlights really pop. This contrast helps define the light and gives the painting more depth. I'm also aiming for quite a harsh line around those sections. I just think it creates a bit more of a striking effect and adds to the overall look. I'll go back in with that violet again to really define that edge of the centre. Now I'm going in with a sap green just at the very top, just so it'll float down into that violet that I put there earlier. At this point, I'm really just messing around with the colours, adding a bit more red hue here, some yellow ochre there, just whatever feels right and natural in the moment. I truly believe that watercolour is an in the moment medium that allows you a lot of freedom. Sometimes it works beautifully, sometimes it doesn't, but that is part of the fun of watercolour. Now I'm just measuring out the petals to get a sense of how far I want to extend them, but honestly, once I started painting, I completely forgot about the exact length and just went for what felt right and looked nice. One thing I did take from the reference was this beautiful petal at the top. It's got a beautiful curve to it, so I really wanted to add that to my painting. I start with the yellow ochre. I put way too much on, so I had to lift that off with a bit of tissue, but I was just trying to get the base down really. Now that the painting's dry, I do add some salt. I am adding table salt, which doesn't give you as much texture as rock salt because it's a lot finer, but I didn't have any rock salt. If I had rock salt, I would have used rock salt. Sometimes I like to stand while I'm painting and move around freely. It helps me stay loose and expressive with my brush strokes. Oh, and please ignore the jumper, it's not dirty, it's just a tie-dye that's gone wrong, so I ended up putting it in my paint-in clothes pile. I'm just starting to lay down the foundation to the petals now. The only thing I'm really focusing on is making sure they radiate outwards from the centre. I originally planned to leave some white space between the centre and the petals because I thought it would look nice, but as you'll see later, I pretty much forgot about that while painting. Does anyone else do that? Think of a cool idea for painting and then completely forget about it, or is it just me? I'm starting to blend the petals at the base now, just with that same yellow ochre. I'm just wetting the petals now as they've dried a bit, but I wanted to add some red hue to bring in more colour and depth to the petals. This will give them a bit more vibrancy and make the painting pop. I wanted the petals to be darker at the bottom, so I'm adding more intensity there. Around the white area near the centre, I'm keeping it lighter to reflect the light and make the petals appear more natural. At the top of the petals I use a mix of cadmium yellow and cadmium yellow hue to keep it lighter, which contrasts nicely with the darker bottom and helps reflect the light. Then I go in with a bit of rose pink from the tube. I'm not sure why, but I really love this colour, and honestly, would it really be a Chloe painting if it didn't have the least little bit of pink? I just add a touch of rose pink to the tips of the petals, and I'm also bringing the petals out a bit more. I really wanted to make sure you can see the brush strokes in at least some of the petals for a bit more texture and a bit more movement. Now I'm adding more colours to the petals. I'm only wetting the tip of my brush so the paint stays focused at the end of the petals. This helps me get a nice brush mark, which I love. I'm using darker colours at the edges of some of the petals, but not too much. I love keeping things loose with watercolour, so it's more of a suggestive look rather than a sharp definition. This way the petals still have that soft flowy feel, but they're more defined where it's needed. Now I'm playing with the colours again, adding some red hues where I feel it's needed and letting the moment guide me, just trusting my instincts to put the colours where I think it will bring the piece together. Now I'm adding even darker colours at the bottom of the petals and letting them blend in more. This creates a nice flow and the darker shades give the petals more depth without being too harsh. I added a bit more violet, but I didn't like how dark it turned out, but I couldn't help myself. Though I always remind myself that watercolour dries lighter, so I'll see how it looks once it's dried. I tried to add a lot of colour here because I wanted to give it a bit of a spritz so the water flows more freely. This helps the colours move and blend naturally, giving the painting more life and more energy. I'm doing the same here, getting the colour to the ends of the petals. When I spritz it, it'll look like the energy is coming out of the petals, making it feel alive. Next, I give the board a good shake, letting the colours spread wherever they want. It creates a nice natural flow and adds that lively, spontaneous look. I'm just adding a little bit more definition to the petals here. I'm making sure that I'm using the wet on wet technique so I don't get them harsh lines. Now that the painting is completely dry, I'm going back in to add some more definition to the petals. This helps make certain areas stand out and adds more depth to the overall piece. I don't want to add too much though because it can take away from the loose feel that I'm going for. It's all about self-control here. If you work with watercolours, you will know how tempting it is to keep adding layers, but sometimes less is more. If I'm not careful, I could overwork it and spoil the piece. I'm using the same colours I started with, burnt umber and yellow ochre, but this time I'm using more pigments so they stand out more. This gives the petal more definition without losing that soft watercolour feel. Moving my board around while I paint really helps me. It gives me a different angle and helps the colours flow more naturally, making it easier to control the way the paint spreads. When I add the definition, I go in with a clean wet brush to blend out any harsh edges. This softens the line and keeps everything looking smooth and natural. Now for my favourite part, adding the splatters. I load up the paintbrush with colours already in the painting, then I tap it to let the splatters fall wherever they want. It adds a fun, energetic touch and brings everything together. As you can see, some of the yellow cadmium got onto the white where I wanted to keep it clear, so I just use that colour to glaze the centre and it gives it a nice warm touch and pulls everything together. So that's the final piece complete. I wanted to show you the differences between the original and the print. The original is special because you can see the texture and the brush marks more. The A3 print is bigger so you can see the salt texture more. The print looks brighter because when you scan a painting it comes out a lot lighter, so I edit it a little on my printer just to bring the colours out, but I don't use Photoshop, just a simple editing on my printer. I am absolutely in love with this piece, it has to be my favourite one ever. I'm also excited to be making the Prince limited edition, which makes it even more special. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe, and even better, sign up for my mailing list. You'll get an exclusive offer when the print is launched, and I'd love for you to be the first to know.
It's Chloe's Crafts. It's Chloe's Crafts. It's Chloe's Crafts.